Welcome to the last session of the day. Thank you for hanging in there with me. You probably heard a lot about social media in all the sessions so far, and I'm going to talk more about social media, but hopefully I'm going to bring a little different perspective to it. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Keith Quisenberry. I'm a graduate of the IMC program. I currently teach in the IMC program, 612 Audience Insight, and I'm a full-time professor, lecturer at Johns Hopkins University in the Center for Leadership Education. And before that, I was a creative guy in advertising. I was a copywriter, creative director for different advertising agencies working on big brands, little brands, and everything in between. But today I want to talk about, I did this research report for Ad Age Insights, which is sort of a research arm of Advertising Age. And I went back and I looked at the latest research in social media from private marketing firms, but then also from academic research. And a lot of us professionals in the industry, we don't even get near those academic journals, and we don't understand what they're talking about. But I tried to go back and I looked at all that research and tried to figure out and put the professional perspective to it and figure out what trends can we see that are going on social media that will help marketers, or actually businesses in general, leverage social media and integrate it into their business. So this is the report. It was just published last month. But before I get into social media, I want to take a step back at the broad perspective of marketing. And at its most basic level, what do you think marketing is about? If you could narrow it down to one word, how would you describe marketing? Selling. Ah, good. The word that I narrowed it down to was persuade. I'm a writer. I come from the School of Communications, and persuasive essays, all that kind of stuff. So, in marketing, no matter what it is, you're trying to persuade someone to do something, or to think a different way, or a certain way, or take a certain action. So, persuasion is to cause somebody to do something by. Now, that's the tricky part. There's different ways you can persuade people to do things, and some are more effective than others. And I would say in marketing, I would describe old school marketing often took an approach like this, right? We would walk up to the consumer with our sawed-off shotgun, the persuader, cock it up and blast them with our message, right? And then when they fell down and when they got back up again, we'd blast them with the message again. And we keep blasting them until they would just submit, they would give in and they go buy the product. And we would do this through mass media, traditional advertising. I would say that traditional, this kind of approach is still important and appropriate, but that doesn't work anymore. And one of the ways it doesn't work, one of the reasons it doesn't work that way anymore is because of this, right? Media clutter. Now, Times Square, all that clutter that you see, that just shows the traditional media clutter that happened. But think of all those people walking around with their smartphones and they're tweeting and they're Facebooking and they're pinning and all that stuff, and that even adds another layer of clutter. As a traditional marketer, it's harder and harder and harder to grab your consumers' attention. So, and I would describe that old method as push marketing. And a lot of people in marketing, we think about, we come up with a message, we control the message, and we push it out to the consumer. So my question is, does that kind of push marketing still work in the environment that we're in? Now, I love Mad Men, and especially Don Draper. He's a cool character. But I have to say, in today's media environment, that type of advertising doesn't work anymore. So I have to say, sorry, Don, we have to say goodbye to you. And we have to leave those days behind. Today, I would say the advertising age is over. And that's not just me saying that, up here. In 2009, Advertising Age, one of the leading trade journals in the industry, they actually published an article that said the advertising age is over. And the article was about the Cannes Film Festival that year, where for the first time, a traditional TV spot didn't take home the gold lion, the top spot. It was a PR campaign and a digital campaign that took home the top spots. And so ad aids themselves pronounced the ad age is over. We're entering an age of engagement. And this is research. This is like one of the early pieces of research that kind of woke us up to this. It's a Nielsen study. And it says consumers trust opinions posted online over advertising. And back when this came out, I was a traditional advertising guy, and I'm like, oh, that's scary, because that's what I do. I do traditional advertising. 90% of people trust recommendations from people they know online. 70% consumer opinions posted online. And then you work your way down, and where's TV, newspapers, magazines, billboards, radio? All the stuff I did in my career is way down on the list. So something different is happening here. So I would just say, as marketing, we have to move beyond push to pull, right? We're going to push the messages out. We need to pull the consumers in terms of engagement, and then also participation. We need to start involving the consumers in our brands in what we're doing. And you can describe that as it's becoming a two-way street in terms of strategy and marketing. So the growth of social media has dramatically shifted this influence of the mass media to personal communication, right? And we need to adjust our perspectives from this strict top-down strategy to this new participative, interactive one. Mass media used to be the gatekeepers. Whether you were in advertising and you would buy the ad and purchase the time and put the message out there, or if you were in PR and you got the message covered in journalism, there were gatekeepers that controlled the message. Now, anybody can make a video, post it online, get millions of views, and they're mass media now, suddenly, on equal level with what you used to control. This is an example of the power of the consumer voice, and this is an early example, and you may have seen this. This is Dave Carroll, and this is a news story that Wolf Blitzer covered it days after this occurred.
Poster child for frustrated passengers everywhere. His video has got about 150,000 views since he posted it just on Monday.
Wow. And United must be responding.
Well, after about 50,000 views, yes, they responded to Dave Carroll. They called him, he says, and a spokeswoman from United Airlines saying they are now in conversations to make what happened right. They said the video is a learning experience for them, and they're going to be using that internally to improve customer service.
We should have just bought him a new Taylor guitar, and that would have been it. But it's a good song.
Yes, very catchy.
Thank you. Like this. Thank you.
Yeah, United, for an entire year, he tried to contact United about this situation. They ignored him. And he even told them, I'm going to make a video, I'm going to go on YouTube, and I'm going to, and they blew him off until this happens. He has 13 million views now, today, and actually when places like CNN started covering this, United's stock price actually dropped, and they lost millions and millions of dollars. So a single consumer voice is very powerful these days, and brands must take them seriously. In terms of research, Forrester did research on this, and they report that consumers create 5 billion social media product and service influence impressions on one another annually. So that's, you know, all the people out there are tweeting and Facebooking and updating and pinning, and a lot of that conversation is about products and brands and services. So you want to be listening to what's happening, and you want to do what you can to influence it. Seth Godin said it nicely. Conversations among the members of your marketplace happen whether you like it or not. This is happening, so you can choose to ignore it, or you can step in and try to do something about it and include it in your strategy. But I think one of the things I wanted to do with this report is think about IMC specifically. And traditionally, IMC is about integrating different messages. So PR is the message that PR is talking about, that advertising is talking about, that you do in direct mail, that you do in your TV spots. It's all integrated because of the media clutter. You need to hit them in multiple areas. But I think we need to do more than that today, in acknowledging the influence of social media. We need to do more than create consistent marketing messages. We need to create consistent business messages. Social media, you know, with the United example, that's not just affecting the marketing department. That's affecting, you know, that company at the very top level. That's affecting HR. It's affecting customer service. It's affecting all those business functions. So we need to think about this on a broader scale. We need to do more than integrate company communications. We need to include consumer communications. So yes, all the messages you control in your entire organization, you need to make sure that everybody's on the same page and they're integrated. But also the consumers out there saying things, and we need to include that now, on top of everything that's outside of your control, outside of the corporate environment. Pushing consistent message out to consumers. Now we must listen as well. And I'm not talking about once a year you do a survey and a focus group, because that's too late by the time you get the results. You need to be listening in real time to what people are saying now, so that you can gain that knowledge and react and act on it. So, but of course, marketers know this. At least they know they need to be in social media. This was another report done. Most digital decision makers plan to increase social media advertising spending in 2012. We know we need to do it. We're going to put money against it. But another survey, 265 U.S. marketing directors were surveyed. 68% say they're behind the curve in digital interactive media integration. 71% they have not caught up to social media integration. We know we need to be there. We're putting money towards it, yet we still don't know how to do it. So I'm going to try to briefly cover these 5 areas that I discovered through the research of how to do it, you know, and give you some examples of who's doing it successfully. These are practical methods for successfully listening. Listening is the first step, and we'll talk about that. Then engaging this new empowered consumer. They have this an empowered consumer voice. Method number 1, social media integration through research. And the important part is not traditional research, is real-time research. This is just one example. You remember the Super Bowl this year when was it this year when the lights went out suddenly? Well, Oreo, the people at Oreo, they were you know, tweeting and they were on the ball, and they took advantage of this. You can still dunk in the dark. They were listening. So you want to talk about this. It's continuous consumer insight that you can gain by listening in real time, and then also brand optimization. You continually optimize your brand, but the importance is to do it in real time. And these are some tools that I found that can help you. And you don't have to have a huge budget. There's a lot of free tools: Google Analytics, Google Trends, Technorati, Facebook Insights, YakTrack, Board Tracker, How Sociable, and search Twitter. These are all free tools that you can use and start monitoring conversations and see what people are talking about and how they're talking about your company. Of course, paid services are very good. Radian6, Hootsuite, HubSpot, Lithium, Nielsen Online. A lot of companies are providing very robust systems that can help. One thing you want to do when you're listening is you want to start. You're not just listening to what's going on. You want to understand the characteristics of the conversations that are happening and the characteristics of what they're saying. Is the conversation positive? Is it negative? And you know, if there's negative conversation out there, that doesn't mean everything is bad. That's a learning experience. That's free research for you. So if people are complaining about a certain feature of your product, then you go and you fix that feature. You talk to your product development people because this is real-time information that you can leverage. And you know, you can do the best advertising campaign and the best PR in the world, but if people keep finding a flaw in the product, it's not going to be a very effective program for you. So you want to find out what they're saying, where they're saying it, and despite the enormous benefits of this kind of research, a recent study found that 90% of global companies are still following traditional research methods such as focus groups and surveys, telephone surveys, mail surveys, and you know, those are important, but you need to start moving in this direction as well. And again, social media, it doesn't replace, it's to augment traditional methods. So where do you start? One place to start is, it depends, look at the goals and objectives of your brand. So this is an example of the kind of goals or objectives, and then the metrics that you want to measure in attaining those objectives. So, you know, people keep talking about social media and you can't measure it, but there are certain ways you can measure it. So let's say you want to deepen a relationship with your current customers. Your objectives would be to achieve critical mass of audience through social media, encourage ongoing interaction with your brand. You have these customers, you just need them to keep thinking about you and reminding them about your brand and your products and services. Some of the metrics would be measure the number of advocates, fans, followers, authors that you get. The number of comments posted. If people start talking about your brand and they're making comments about it, then your strategy is being successful. And or let's say you want to drive purchase intent. That's ultimately a lot of the goals of marketing. So you want to persuade engagement with website content and utility. You want to create engaging content that's going to pull the people in, and that's going to drive them towards an intent of purchasing your product or service. So your metrics could be leads to an e-commerce partners. So let's say your product's sold through someone else, you're driving traffic there so where they could actually purchase your product. Retailer locator, results of activity, you send them to a retailer, the sales start increasing. Product brochure downloads, if they download a brochure for your product, that's showing purchase intent. So this is Chris Murdo from, he's VP, Associate Director of Digital Analytics at Mullen. He says, decide how your brand wants to change its relationship with its customers. So first you listen, you get a sense of what that relationship is like currently, then you decide how you want to change it. Except the tracking and precision, yeah, you can measure certain things, but it's not all measurable. But you know, make sure everyone understands the expectations. There's a slow burn on social media. And then the most important part is just to get out there and start. You're never going to have the perfect plan, and it's never going to be 100% guaranteed. It's just important to start today. And then as you learn, you just optimize it. The second method is social media integration through crowdsourcing. How many people have heard the word crowdsourcing before? Yeah. I think that's another one of those buzzwords where we all heard it, and yeah, we need to do it, but what does it mean? How do you do it? I just know people are doing it. And so I have a couple examples here, you know, what it means and what it really can accomplish. A good example of integrating the consumer voice or the consumer's opinion through crowdsourcing is Dell, actually. And a couple years ago, Dell, I don't know if you remember, they had a bad PR situation where their customer service was really lacking, and they went through this period called Dell Hell, and it was bad customer service, but social media, of course, let everyone know it, and it really spread, and it has this bad reputation. But one of the things that Michael Dell did to pull them out of that is he fixed the customer service, but he also launched IdeaStorm. IdeaStorm was a website to collect customer ideas. And you think about it, how many features can you come out and improvements and new products you come out every year, and you're trying to predict what the consumer wants? Why don't you just ask the consumer, right? Well, that's what they did. They created IdeaStorm. Within a year, they captured 10,000 ideas, and they actually implemented 400 of them. And I think he felt pretty good about implementing those 400 ideas, that's what people wanted because they gave him the idea, right? So, and this actually was one of the key parts that helped pull Dell out of Dell Hell, and now they're one of the innovators in the social media space. But that's crowdsourcing. You're crowdsourcing your R&D, your design department. You know, you have a group of people that has to come up with the great new thing every year. Ask your consumers what they want. So think about an online idea competition. Engage the consumer, and they'll provide you valuable insight. Another example, Facebook. Maybe you have an enormous task in front of you, and you don't know how you're going to accomplish it, or it's going to cost a lot of money, or it's going to take a lot of time. So Facebook, when they were going from US only into other markets in the globe, they had to translate their website into 70 different languages. That's a pretty daunting task. So what they did is they leveraged the crowd. They created a website to mobilize the crowd into helping them. And this is just one example. The French Facebook website, they, in just one day, over 300,000 volunteers translated the entire website for them. And so not only did they get something done, but they're engaging consumers with their brand. So accomplish small or big tasks for your business through crowdsourcing. This is another example of somebody else mentioned about one of the last remaining mass media places where you can reach a mass media is Super Bowl, and you can buy a 30-second TV spot on a Super Bowl, and you will reach a mass audience. But it's so expensive that that's not good enough. You have to get a lot of attention around that 30 seconds before the Super Bowl and after the Super Bowl, and get people talking about it and passing it around. So Frito-Lay's done a good job with their Crash the Super Bowl contest. And I have to admit, as a copywriter, a creative guy, I was very nervous about these kind of things, because I'm like, well, that's my job. You're just going to have other people do it, and then I'm out of a job. But the creatives were the ones that kind of helped devise this in the first place, and so there was the thinking behind it. But so yeah, you're probably familiar with it. They get people to submit their commercials and the ideas, and they launch a website, and people try to tell their friends about it and try to get them to vote on it, and they decide who's going to be the winning Super Bowl commercial, and it actually airs on the Super Bowl. And they get media attention before the Super Bowl, they get media attention after the Super Bowl. In 2012, they actually earned the top spot in the USA Today ad meter, where the most popular Super Bowl commercials was an entry in this contest. And then in 2013, they created a Facebook app for entries for this contest. So now they have even more social integration, driving people to their Facebook account, and extending the social reach of this. So think about crowdsourcing as co-creating with your crowd, increases engagement, can help extend your campaign, and PR. They get a lot of media coverage out of this. And Crispin and Porter, an advertising agency out of Miami, now they're in Boulder, Colorado. They always said that they didn't want to create advertising, they wanted to create PR-able advertising. So it wasn't good enough to create a great advertising spot. They wanted an advertising spot that people talked about and covered in the news. And I think that's a good way to think about it. This is actually a research study that I got out of an academic journal, and they put ROI on this, on crowdsourcing ideas. And the traditional way is this company, they would have their in-house department come up with ideas, and then they would use traditional focus groups, and then they would come out with a certain number of ideas, and they did that. But then they also took another group, and they had an online idea competition, which there is some work involved and expense. They had to create a website, and they had to promote it, and those type of things. But when they looked at the numbers, you know, they came up total ideas, 218 ideas in the online competition. The focus group workshops, they came out with 52. So there's a little more sorting going on there. But the bottom line, when they looked at the total cost, the cost per idea was $128 in the online idea competition and $140 through the traditional workshop. So that's real ROI proof that the crowdsourcing or engaging the social media was a better return on the investment. And this is from a Wharton customer analytics report, where they say American companies spend more than $10 billion a year on consumer research, yet the techniques they use are more than 3 decades old, relying heavily on focus groups and consumer surveys, despite declining customer participation and long turnaround times. Right? How many people respond to the phone surveys, and you hang up on them, and it's getting more and more difficult to recruit people for those traditional methods. Let alone it takes forever to hire a firm and conduct it. You do focus groups in multiple cities, and you get to report back. Social media is real time. The third way to integrate social media into your business is through branded content. This also is called content marketing, and it's a different mindset from traditional marketing, where you're pushing out sales messages. You said to sell something or be persuasive. It's a different it's a different thought process, because you have to create something of value that people want to be drawn to. But you are the brand that's sponsoring it, and if it's useful for the customer, you're going to get the benefit of it. A good example of this was in 2007. Unfortunately, a lot of companies become good at social media because they're forced into it because they were bad at it, like United Airlines. In 2007, Home Depot, they let their customer service slide, and a financial columnist for MSN Money wrote a column on his blog saying that people should not invest in Home Depot anymore because the customer service has dropped significantly. And that was just his experience of walking in a Home Depot on the weekend to do some home improvement projects, and the customer service sucked. I mean, they didn't put any effort behind it anymore. So, and he struck a chord, and he was right, because there were 7,000 comments to that one column, and most of them were negative, agreeing with him. Home Depot's service sucks. And you have to give credit to the CEO of Home Depot. He actually responded with a comment to the columnist apologizing for the poor service, and he promised to make it right. And he did. And of course, he fixed the customer service problem. They hired more associates in the store, and they improved the quality of the customer service and their knowledge. But a lot of what pulled them out of that was leveraging social media. So he got these better customer service associates, and he started using them to make branded content. Home Depot has a YouTube channel with do-it-yourself videos. And it's their associates, the people that work in the stores, that are making the videos. They have a team of associates who work in the store, but part-time, but then the other time they're on Facebook and Twitter, and they're responding to people's questions about do-it-yourself projects. So they're leveraging their knowledge and creating valuable branded content that is being successful for that company. Another example is Best Buy. They created this campaign called 12th Force, and it basically, they have knowledgeable associates on the floor who know about the electronics or the TVs or the computers or the cameras or whatever you're purchasing, but they're limited in the store, so why not leverage them online? So these employees, they sign up for this and they monitor the Twitter stream, and when people have questions, they answer them from the store out on Twitter, and they're creating this branded content for Best Buy as we're knowledgeable, we're helpful, and it's drawing people to the store. So another way for branded content is to let your employees speak for you. They're knowledgeable about it. Let them create this valuable content that's going to engage your consumer. Now, before you let your employees speak for you, you must give them guidelines. And we've saw a couple presentations that talked about this. You know, before launching any employee social media effort, a company should have guidelines in place. Unfortunately, in 2010, a survey found that 20% of the 34,000 employers surveyed had a formal social media policy in place, only 20%. So, you know, that was 2010. I don't know how many have caught up, but yeah, you definitely don't want to unleash the employees out there until you have a policy in place. But fortunately, there's some help out there. I think socialmedia.org was mentioned yesterday. The Word of Mouth Marketing Association, WOMA, if you go on their website, they have resources to help you in writing a employee social media policy. So you can start leveraging your employees. This is another way to think about it. I don't know, has anyone seen Swagger Wagon, the viral video? It was a favorite of mine because I drive. Well, I have a minivan, and you know I'm not too proud. But when you have 3 kids and a dog, you know you get a minivan. But this video made me proud to drive that minivan, sort of. And they basically did a parody hip hop video of this family, and it wasn't a minivan, it's a Swagger Wagon, and they made it sound cool to drive one. And it was very popular, and it was very successful, and I think I don't remember the exact figures, but they increased sales a good percentage that year. Right after, the year before, they had a big PR crisis, and you probably remember this, where Toyota had the massive recalls, and then like the CEO was vacationing and golfing instead of reacting to it, and they just handled it very poorly. So on the tails of that, and plus it's a minivan, they managed to turn it around, and it was a recession and people weren't buying new cars. They still managed to sell more minivans that year, so it was very successful. But it was one viral video, and when you have a viral success like that, the challenge is, how do I keep it going? How do I leverage it? So what they did in 2011, they came back with this, and they leveraged the fans to create more content for them. They gave them the MP3 to download. They gave them video of the car. They gave them photos and logos to download. And people went out and made their own family version of the video, and they gave them a YouTube place to start uploading it. So then you have all these great new videos of the song, and it's people contributing and keeping the engagement going, and really leveraging that campaign. And it's all branded content that's created for you by your customers. So let your employees create content for you. Let your customers create content for you. Don't be afraid of it. Make it easy for them and engage them. If they love your brand, they're going to contribute and help you out. So there's a lot of branded content out there that you can create. The bottom line is make sure it's valuable. People won't be attracted to it if it's just a traditional advertising, marketing, sales message. That's not what branded content is, or content marketing. It's valuable content that the person's drawn to because it's useful to them, brought to you by the brand. And this is a study done by Content Marketing Association, and they're looking at content marketing by tactic. And you can see the top there is social media other than blogs, articles on your website, e-newsletters, videos, blogs, in-person events, articles on other websites, mobile content. You know, these are all different e-books. These are all different ways that you can leverage branded content, and you just have to figure out what's best for your goals and your strategies, and just make sure it's valuable. As I said, in terms of making sure it's valuable, you need to take your marketer hat off, your advertising hat off, and you need to start thinking thinking like a journalist. Marketers need to take off their sales hat, put on their publisher hats. Even though almost all brands create content for marketing purposes, almost none have content marketing strategies. Creating valuable content is a completely different mindset, and if you're so used to making salesy, persuasive messages, it's going to be difficult to do. So some companies like IT company Computer Sciences Corporation, the way they shifted into content marketing is they hired an entire department of former journalists, and now they have a department of journalists who used to write content for newspapers and magazines and other sources, and now they're creating content for them for their websites and all their social media. Another example, a personal example, is my uncle was a journalist for like 20, 25 years. He worked for one of the newspapers in Seattle till a couple years ago. They just shut the paper down and they went out of business. Now he's working for Boeing, and he's publishing a magazine, a corporate magazine for Boeing, and then also creating additional corporate content for the Boeing organization. So I think a lot of that is occurring as well, which is good for all the journalists that need jobs after all the newspapers shut down and all the other places. Okay, so what are we on? Number 4, customer evangelism. You've probably heard of that word before as well. Customer evangelism. I need brand evangelists to get out there and just start spreading my message all over the place. It's easier said than done. How do you do it? This is a if anybody's read Malcolm Gladwell, Tipping Point, this graph basically represents one of the methods he was talking about in Tipping Point is the creators of peer influence, that there's actually a small number of people that have a great influence, and if you identify those people, that's how you can start leveraging consumer evangelists. So, and he described them as mass connectors and mass mavens. Seth Godin also wrote a book, I think a year later, called Idea Virus. And actually his book was an idea virus. He put it out for free, and it spread. And then he ended up publishing it later and charging people $40 for it on Amazon, even though you can still get it for free. It was kind of a brilliant marketing. But he calls them sneezers. And he says there's these people out there that just have lots of connections, and they're very interested in a specific subject, whether it's your brand or your industry. And if you identify them, get them on your side, they're the ones that can really spread a message for you. So you want to identify this group of disseminators who are going to actively distribute this positive word of mouth for you through their social networks. And you know, if you're monitoring social media, you will notice those people because they're talking a lot just in general. But there's also services like Clout that will help you identify the people that have the real influence. Mark Schaefer was here last year at the conference promoting his book, Return on Influence, and he really talked a lot about that. That some companies identify these mass mavens and sneezers, and they fly them out for product launches and take them out to dinner because they're that valuable. They represent that much a valuable word of mouth in social media. So you want to identify a customer evangelism network. Another method to integrate customer evangelism is to create create a evangelistic network. And that's what P&G did with Vocal Point. P&G set up this website community. It was called Vocal Point for influential moms, so that they could try new P&G products and share their experiences with each other. And it was a pretty vibrant network, and but what they found was when the moms really liked the products, they not only talked on the network that they created, they also went outside the network and shared about it on their own personal social networks. And talk about measuring influence of this type of word of mouth. P&G found that they had these Vocal Points set up in certain markets, but other markets didn't have Vocal Point. In the markets that had Vocal Point, they produced twice the revenue on those products as the markets that didn't have Vocal Point and didn't have these people that were actively communicating about the products and the brands for them. So that's an example of creating a customer evangelism network. Lego has a similar version of this called Lego Ambassadors. If a lot of companies have these hardcore enthusiasts that are big fans of your products and your brands, and Lego, they leverage these people by creating the Lego Ambassador Network. And you actually have to apply to get into this. There's a limited number of people that are allowed in, and you're selected. And once you get in, you get access to previews of products and insider information about what they're developing or what the new products are going to be for the next year. And the Lego ambassadors return the favor for being invited in, and they're influencers. They're in their networks. They go out and they talk about it in their networks outside the program, and they're sharing, they're spreading the word. They're becoming ambassadors. So they literally created Lego ambassadors, who are these brand evangelists for them, and it doesn't cost them much. They just give them information. They also pay them in free bricks. So if you're a Lego addict, you always want more bricks, right? So they just ship them some free bricks, and they start talking about them. Plus, they get some good ideas as well. This is like a place where you can get ideas for improvements. And now the other thing is, though, not all products are going to be worth talking about, should I say? Like, there's Lego enthusiasts, but what about Charmin? Now, Jason shared the Twitter feed from Charmin, and I thought it was very funny. But you probably don't have hardcore Charmin enthusiasts out there who just want to go out and talk about toilet paper. Are you one of those?
No, but in Southern California, of all places, they actually do have an app where every restroom you go into, you tag it, whether it's using great paper, bad paper, if it's
okay.
not clean, so they're rating
Okay.
public restrooms, and that's from Charmin.
Well, yeah. Good. But you probably wouldn't create a Charmin ambassadors program.
Big surprise in California.
So if you have a product that you just don't think people are chomping at the bit to go out and talk about and write blog posts about, eBags faced a similar problem. They sell luggage. It's good to have a really good piece of luggage, especially if you travel a lot, but it's not something that drives you to just tweet about and write about constantly. So the way eBags leveraged social media and customer evangelism was ratings and reviews. And you may not think of ratings and reviews as social media or even customer evangelism, but think about it. At the point of purchase, when someone's deciding whether to purchase or not purchase your product, you're reaching them with very influential information that's going to tip them over to buy or not to buy. And we know other consumers' opinions online are more important than any advertising you could do. So it's a very, very, very valuable tool, and that's what eBags did. They added ratings and reviews to their products. And now some companies are a little leery of this because they're afraid there's going to be negative comments. And people talk about the negative parts of aspects of the product. Well, if you get too many negative things about wheels falling off luggage, then you do have a problem and you need to fix the product. And no amount of good advertising or PR is going to help you in that area. But the other side of it is they've done research that says having some negative comments in with positive comments actually makes the positive comments more legitimate and more impactful to making a decision. If they're all positive comments, people are skeptical. And we learned in the ethics, the social media ethics, you definitely don't go out and hire people to write a bunch of positive comments for you, right? But this is a form of customer evangelism. Ratings and reviews count. And if you don't have them on your website, add them. There's some software involved, but that's a way to do it. So customer evangelists who give remarkable reviews of products become amazing salespeople for a company. 96% of customers use online reviews to help them make purchases, right? That's what you do. You go online, you're always looking to see what someone else said about it. And they count a lot. So we'll move to the final method, number 5, and that's through customer service. Now this is probably the one area that's most outside of marketing, because it's a completely different department, function area. If you look at the org chart in a corporation, you don't talk to those people. They just go and they run their call centers. But in 2008, Frank Ellison became the most famous customer service person in the country when he decided to start responding to people's complaints about Comcast Cable Company through Twitter. And I've been an angry Comcast Cable customer over the years, and I can relate to that. And it became so successful. Now he's left Comcast. He's VP of social media at Citibank, and he tours the country telling marketers how to do social media in marketing. And he never had a marketing background. He didn't have a marketing degree. He never worked in marketing. He's a customer service guy that figured it out before the marketers. So, and now Comcast, they do customers. They have an entire department that are constantly monitoring social media, and they've gone onto Facebook as well. And if you complain, they will respond to you, and they get. And I did this with Verizon. Verizon's doing it now, and I tried to do the traditional route over the phone. 8 days later, and transferred, and hours wasting my time, I finally tweeted like an angry tweet, and in minutes, they responded to me, and by the end of the day, my issue was resolved, all via Twitter. So I don't know what it is about the social media customers, but it's so much better. So I think today, you have to start supporting your customers with social media. It's not the exception anymore, it's become the expectation. Dissatisfaction stemming from failure to respond via social media channels can lead up to a 15% increase in the churn rate for your existing customers. You don't want to lose existing customers. It costs you a lot of money to get them there. So when you lose them and then you want to replace them with new customers, that's similar. You do not want to lose the existing customers. 2011 survey studied 1,200 U.S. consumers who have used Twitter to complain about a product or company. Nearly half of them reported they expect the company to read their tweet, 50% expect a response, and only 29% received a follow-up. So there's a gap there between consumer expectations and what companies are doing, and I see that as an opportunity for a company, especially today when we struggle with product brand differentiation. How's our brand different from another? Well, if we move into this area and we're providing superior customer service where people are expecting it, right there you have a competitive advantage, and which is hard to find these days. TurboTax is a good example. It can be a daunting task, and you can't just hire an entire department right away. You got to take baby steps. TurboTax found they started providing live customer support in social media, but as you can imagine, as you get closer to the April 15th, the questions become more frequent and it can be overwhelming. So what they did is they leveraged employees in departments all across the company to help them out during tax season. So you're at your desk, you're in the research department, or you're in the whatever department, you're also answering questions on Twitter to get them through the tax season. And they very impressive, in 2010, They had an average response time of 4 minutes. You tweet a tax question to TurboTax and they're answering you within 4 minutes. Amazing. So I'm going to buy TurboTax the next year, and the next year they got me, right? And the other amazing thing is 71% of the customers that received a response recommend TurboTax to other people. Valuable word of mouth. And this is customer service, but I would consider that marketing, right? That's very valuable marketing. And there's a lot of online tools that can help you with this. This is Cisco has a social media customer care where they're actually integrating social media monitoring in with CRM tools and databases to one seamless system. So you can imagine you're looking at all these data and you're looking at people and you can identify. And that was a scary thing for me when I complained about Verizon. They knew my name and what kind of service I had and everything because I was already tied into their CRM database, and they're bringing in the social media monitoring at the same time. But that's providing exceptional customer service. So if you can get one of these services, it can be very valuable and help you in that. So of the social media business activities, where should you start? You don't want to just start doing. You obviously can't do all 5 of these areas starting tomorrow. Where should you start? This was a survey that was done, and these are social media business activities. Marketing is still number 1 at 76%, but you can see customer service is right below it at 63%. I think that's a big opportunity for a lot of companies to make an impact. So I think the main point I want to make is IMC, it's about integrating messages, making sure you're putting the same message out there. But I think we need to go up another notch in the corporate structure and get out of our silo and look at other business functions. It's impacting R&D, it's design, it's impacting HR, it's impacting corporate communications, customer service. And those that's not in our wheel well in the marketing department, but I think we can take the lead in social media integration in those other areas and start working with those people because our little marketing plans in our silo are going to be impacted by what's going on in social media in those other departments anyway. So we might as well step up and lead that integration. So now, a good manager, we're going to plan, direct, but also listen and engage our consumers and adjust. And then to leverage this power of social media, look beyond marketing to include other business departments, but then also the consumer voice. The consumer voice is very powerful, and we need to take that into consideration. We can't control all the messages out there. So, in review, integrate social media through research, real-time research, crowdsourcing, branded content, customer evangelism, and customer service. Anybody have any questions?
Hi, I work for a B2B company who
Yes.
Customers are usually government agencies. So step 5 was kind of lost for me. I didn't see a way that I could implement it. Do you have any other steps that I could use?
For customer service, you're talking about?
Yeah, instead of customer service, since I'm a B2B company, my company has a lot of government contracts.
Yeah.
So that's the customer for us. So it's
There's actually a research study that I have in the report that I didn't talk about today, where they did a study of this European company, and it was an industrial company, and it's B2B, and it was amazing the number of social media conversations that were still happening about that brand that they could be monitoring and influencing. And other examples are the product development where you're including like consumers to give you ideas. You can do that across the supply chain as well. So you can invite your customers to be part of a community that's going to help you identify the new features that they want or new product improvements or what you're going to launch there. But if you come down afterwards, I can show you the other study that's specifically about B2B. And there's a couple examples for that. Yeah, I think the key is you can't do it all, and you need to pick, based on your customer, part of the listening process is finding out where your customers are talking. Or if you're a startup, you don't have customers yet, but who are you targeting? You know, are they customers of existing companies? Are they in an industry? Where are they most active? Are they most active on Twitter? Are they most active on LinkedIn? Are they most active on Pinterest? Find out where they're active, where your audience is, and go to them and start engaging them. And then you can build from there. But social media, the thing about social media, especially for a startup, is there isn't a media cost, it's time. So I mean, that is the thing, it's not free, but startups really don't have an advertising budget to go out and buy traditional advertising. So I would say start with your customer and see come up with creative ways that you can engage them in social media where they're talking and paying attention. And you know, as CEO, you can start by being a leader in the industry and just like maybe you write a white paper that's predicting the future of your industry, and your company is going to be a leader in that area. And you invite people to download it, and they give you their email address to download it, and then you're starting to generate leads there. And you start a Twitter feed, and you're delivering facts from the report. That's giving you content that's going to draw people back to be interested in the white paper, that's going to give you context. And you're going to self-select people that are interested in what you're talking about. But yeah, there's a whole, like the tweeting CEO, and there's a whole debate about that. All right, thank you.